Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, we pick up our phones and dial N for Nintendo. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with ya. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, and I'm joined, as I'm always joined, by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. Mark, how's it going?
It's going great. Patrick, can I ask, what are your feelings on the musical Annie?
Oh, I don't have many feelings about Annie. I think I sort of lump it in with these sort of cheesy early 20th century American musicals that I don't have any personal affinity for. I like the general aesthetic of it, but I'm not going to bother myself with knowing any of the individual songs.
Okay.
Food Glorious Food, I get that. Tomorrow, I get that. Food Glorious Food is Oliver. I messed up. But in my mind,
listeners, you what you didn't see was the
just total flop sweat over here. To fear in my eyes, like I saw a ghost.
I like Annie quite a bit. I like any musical that ends with an ode to the New Deal. But the reason I was thinking about it is because I was thinking about I don't think there's ever been a successful.
Can we cut that part where I said Food Glorious Food is from Annie? That's embarrassing.
Does that count as a music cue flub? I was thinking about there's never been a successful, to my mind, big screen adaptation of Annie.
Sure.
There was one that was made for TV for The Wonderful World of Disney or something in the early 2000s.
Well, and there was a made for TV one just a couple of years ago, right?
Oh, was there? I don't know. I haven't. Maybe I need to research this.
I don't know.
But
who doesn't know about Annie now? No, tell me why you were thinking about it.
The Artful Dodger is clearly my favorite character in Annie. No, but so in the one from the 80s, they took out the musical number about New York City, and they put it in a new one called Let's Go to the Movies. Terrible song, terrible sequence, but Annie is not the only movie musical that is guilty of this.
Yeah.
I feel like every movie musical feels like it has to be more than just
they always have to write a new song so they can be nominated for Best Original Song.
That's right. That's what it is.
That's what happens. And it always works. That Suddenly song from the movie of Les Mis.
Oh, right.
That got nominated for an Academy Award.
Terrible song.
Bad song.
Uh-huh.
Shouldn't have been in there. Look, all I'm saying is you add Fagin to Annie, it's going to improve it.
I think that's where we come down on the whole thing.
Speaking of things that you could add Fagin to improve it, my copy of Sonic Forces for the Nintendo Switch. Would you like to borrow it? You can certainly try. You can get on that list to borrow my copy of Sonic Forces for the Nintendo Switch. All you gotta do is email us at Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com and give us a mailing address. We can send you my copy of Sonic Forces or my copy of Untitled Goose Game in a Sonic Forces box. That's a real thing that could happen to you if you sign up to be on this list. I pay for postage both ways. It is the perfect borrowing program. Mark, we have to get into it. We've got to discuss the legacy, the past, the future, and the potential future of Nintendo's mobile games. And we do this, of course, as a bit of a funeral to Dragalia Lost, the game which was released in 2018. Nintendo is finally shutting the doors on it. Was more or less like a live service mobile game. And so we thought we would reflect on what Nintendo has done with mobile stuff so far, what we've appreciated from that, and what we've ignored from that. And then where we think they're going, and then we'll have a little bit of fun and talk about where we would like them to go. But Mark, let's just start with Dragalia Lost. We did an episode on Dragalia Lost when it came out 4 years ago. Um, do you remember what like your impressions were of it at the time?
So I feel like it's going to be tricky to talk about a lot of these games holistically. Meaning only that I can speak to like my experience, which is usually when the game first released.
Right.
But like all live service games, Dragalia Lost, I'm sure had so much more content by the end of its life. Yeah, it was shut down yesterday.
Right.
By the end of its life, probably a very different experience than what we checked out back in 2018.
Yeah, well, like in particular, there were a lot of like crossover things and like guest characters. There was like a Mega Man crossover and like all these other things, all of which post date my time with the game. You and I think both played it for like the week before we were going to record about it, and like kind of had a good time with the game, right?
I remember the character designs being really fun,
really compelling.
The music being
bangers,
amazing.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, the music in Dragalia Lost, and I'm assuming that tradition continued to the end. So good.
Yeah.
And kind of like poppy.
Yes.
Like
yeah.
pop music.
Yeah. Has that very like Final Fantasy X-esque like sort of anime, but with like a slightly different aesthetic and like occasionally getting like kind of metally. Yeah, like that. Just that it was like an aesthetically pleasing experience,
and like the core, like dungeon crawling RPG type mechanic, and being able to group up with people online. Like I remember liking Dragalia Lost. I'll tell you, like for the majority of these games, one of the big drawbacks for them, for me personally, is that they're on mobile devices because I just don't play games on my phone very much.
Yeah. Well, and I know we talked about it at the time when it came out. That was like when they eventually have to bring this IP over to like a mainline Nintendo system, I'll be excited to engage with it then. I was having a good time engaging with it when it was on phones, but not like it takes a lot to get me to like come back to something on my phone. Like I think about my recent experiences specifically with Marvel Snap, and I was way into that for like 3 weeks. And then like a couple days went by where I wasn't playing it, and then that was sort of it. Like it fallen off.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about this for something we'll get into like later.
We'll get into it later.
But I really, again, this is just me personally, really value bite-sized, discrete experiences.
Yes.
On my phone. So like something where it's just like Duolingo is a good example. Like where I do it for like 10 minutes a day, and then I'm done with it. And it's like, there are not very many mobile games that work that way.
Yeah.
Because that's not how they monetize.
Right. Well, because they have to monetize progression, and progression necessitates that there's continuity from one play session to the next, right? And that's, Dragalia Lost was all about progression, right? That you were building up these characters and sometimes even like revisiting like levels or dungeons or whatever to level characters up so that like the next time you went in, it would be a little bit easier to tackle those challenges. But like Dragalia Lost, if you didn't check it out, like sort of played a little. I'm gonna say this, and you can check me if you think this is an inaccurate statement. It was a little Diablo-like, but like in bite size, like less explory than Diablo. But like for the most part, you just sort of like tapped on who you wanted your characters to attack, and then like could manage like items or spells or whatever on top of that.
And I think I mean, that seems fair to my memory of it. I also think that it was like mobile friendly in the sense that the dungeons were not that long.
Right. Well, and they were also designed with that like vertical screen in mind too, right? That the portrait perspective, which to my mind, I feel like, again, we're not really like mobile gamers, right? Like that's not really the language that we speak when it comes to gaming. But for me, the most successful mobile games are those that prioritize portrait mode. Like if I have to tilt my phone landscape style, it's not. I'm doing something else with it. Like it's not the same. It's like it becomes a different machine somehow.
I think all of these Nintendo games that we're going to talk about honor the portrait mode,
and that's pretty exciting and pretty cool. Okay, well, and any like final thoughts about? I know we haven't really like dug into Dragalia Lost, but like outside of talking about like what happens in the story, which we don't know because we stopped playing it 4 years ago.
Yeah, it's hard to say that much. Yeah, exactly. When it's like, well, I spent like 2 weeks with it 4 years ago,
Right.
and I'm sure it's a very different game when it shut down than it was when we played.
So, I mean, let's just talk about that the fact that it shut down, because a fair number of these the other Nintendo games that we are going to talk about shortly have already shut down. That's a wild thing to think about. These games simply don't exist anymore, right? And this is a common Nintendo thing. We're about to see it happen to a bunch of 3DS games that will no longer be buyable, I guess. But like there was I was playing a 3DS game that I don't want to say right now because it ties into what we're going to talk about later, that had some like heavy online and like sharing features in it, that like those features are just like done. They're just shut down. They went away with the Miiverse. So it's weird to think that like these mobile games occupy that same space,
and maybe even like a darker corner of that same space because
they just don't exist at all,
right? Like, because with like 3DS games and DS games, like anything I feel like that's on a home or like a Nintendo console, Nintendo hardware, there is always the chance that it will come back in like a virtual console.
Oh, that's true.
Like same sort of thing. But with these mobile games, like a Dragalia Lost, like I don't ever anticipate that showing up on like the successor to the Switch or something like that. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think Dragalia Lost might be an outlier. Like, I think it's possible that we see a Dragalia Lost in the future. I still think that's possible.
Even though because it is unique among these Nintendo offerings in that it was a completely new like characters, completely new story. It wasn't a known franchise that Nintendo was adapting for mobile. It was just its own thing. And so yeah, maybe I guess that's totally possible. We could see something Dragalia Lost related in the future.
I mean, I think it would be, but so like for example, Dr. Mario World, which we'll get to talking about in a second. When it shut down, like that was it. That's the end of it. I never expect to hear anyone talk about Dr. Mario World literally ever again. Like at some point someone's going to be listing Dr. Mario games. They're going to be like, oh yeah, so there's an online prescription on Wii and Dr. Luigi on Wii U, and I guess there was a mobile game. Like it'll be listed in that same stack of curiosities, but not really anything else.
Yeah.
It goes in the same pile as like The Legend of Zelda BS, or like the third.
Yeah, that's true.
The third Famicom Detective Club game, where it's just like we theoretically know these things existed, but like no one can experience them. All right, Mark. So what we want to do is we want to talk about the sort of like past of what games Nintendo has put out on mobile devices. So there are obviously two different categories here. One which is true to what we're actually saying, which is Nintendo games, and then Pokemon games. And there are a ton of Pokemon games and Pokemon apps on mobile. So we're going to tackle all of those at once. But first, let's talk about the Nintendo games. So Mark, you want to tee us up with the first Nintendo mobile game?
Yeah. So in 2016, and I guess maybe we should just set the stage real quick.
Yeah.
Why Nintendo moved into mobile at all?
Great.
And why we got like kind of this 3-year period where Nintendo was releasing multiple mobile games a year for the most part, and then yes, we got like Pikmin Bloom, but they were really aggressively going after this strategy for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then now they don't feel the pressure anymore. And the reason, of course, that they felt the pressure was the Wii U. And
right, and the fact that because Mark said it came out in 2016, hasn't introduced the game yet, but the Switch comes out in 2017, right? So you can see like the wheels were already in motion for a lot of these games to come out, but you can see the prioritization of these mobile games like drifting away as they suddenly needed no other pillars.
Right. Because, when the Wii U was not very successful and the 3DS was less successful than the DS, there was a lot of investor pressure on Nintendo to explore mobile because the feeling was that, like, that's where Nintendo lost its audience. They lost it to phones and tablets. And so that's where Nintendo should be.
I don't think is wrong. Like, I think that is phones and tablets and the ubiquity of them those are the DS killers and the 3DS killers. And again, we'll talk more about franchises that were big on those, I'm sure, later in this episode. But like the types of games that, you know, America Ferrera was playing on a DS commercial back in the early 2000s, those are the kind of games that people ended up playing on their phones. So like, yeah, that the mobile market totally ate their lunch in that regard.
But Nintendo, being Nintendo, kind of entered the mobile market in a really interesting way, and that was with Miitomo. In 2016.
The first two entries here are so like quintessentially Nintendo, and the fact that neither one of them did well like just goes to show you how weird the mobile market is.
Yeah.
Right? But yeah, so Miitomo is the first one. And Miitomo, what was the name of the version of this game that was on the 3DS?
I'm not sure.
Hold on. It may also just be called Miitomo. But I'm gonna look it up while you start talking about.
Yeah. So Miitomo was
Miitomo.
like a Nintendo take on a social network, I would say. It was for like you would answer. It was like kind of like for conversing with friends, but not really. You would communicate with people by answering questions on various topics, so it was very like curated, and specific.
And like it was you, but it was like your me in the game.
Yeah.
The 3DS game I was thinking of is Tomodachi Life.
Oh, okay, yes. Which I think some of the same team that worked on Miitomo worked on Tomodachi Life, and so there are a lot of similarities between the two.
Yeah, well, I mean, it basically is like a mobile version of that game, like sort of stripped down a little bit and what you could actually customize, like in your Mii's apartment and stuff like that. But yeah, it was mostly built around these like asking questions and like putting your friends' Mii's in like different situations where like it just looked weird and funny. Like that was sort of the whole appeal of the game. And
you could buy an in-game currency like Miitomo coins and then use it to customize your Mii and take like photos that you can share.
Right.
So I mean, honestly, it felt like there was zero chance that this was going to take off.
Yeah. Well, and especially like in an age before it feels like, I don't know, if this had come out like after Animal Crossing New Horizons, like I just think about the boom in like sharing screen grabs from Nintendo games that started with Animal Crossing New Horizons, that like then it just became a thing where like people were sharing those on like regular social media all the time. And I just wonder if like Miitomo could have like ridden that same wave of like, here's a fun, cute thing that we're doing in this game, but maybe not. Maybe like the whole premise is just sort of doomed.
I mean, maybe if Miitomo was part of the Nintendo Switch Online app for your mobile phone,
sure,
and that was like if the Wii U had been successful in that alternate scenario,
man, we are doing
Miitomo
a lot of different hypotheticals here.
Yeah, in that scenario, Miitomo wouldn't have existed,
right?
But I'm just thinking, like the Miiverse was such a big part of the Wii U's interface,
yes,
that if it had been successful, then maybe that would have carried over to the Switch, and then it would have made sense to have Miitomo be part of, like the Switch app.
Well, so this and like you can see where they're like, okay, what do the audience that we're chasing with the mobile market is the same audience that we had on the Wii and that we had on the DS. What do those people like? They like Mii's. So like the math makes sense. Like you can write the equation on the board and you don't need Matt Damon to like solve it for you. You can do it yourself. Like it makes sense. But like it's amazing then that they were like 4 months away. Well, I don't remember what time of year Miitomo came out, but less than a year away from like almost dropping Mii's entirely with the Switch.
Yeah. But I also feel like Nintendo's mobile, like Nintendo and mobile games, even the successful ones, it's just been like an uncomfortable fit. Like,
yes.
I have never got the feeling that Nintendo really likes making mobile games. Yeah. I think they pursued it because they felt like they had to.
It also seems like they don't like making money from mobile games either.
No, they don't. I mean, they have said that they don't.
That was one of the things with Dragalia Lost.
Yeah. That they do not like, the like gotcha mechanic that drives a lot of very successful mobile games.
Right. So maybe that's the perfect segue into the second mobile game, which is Super Mario Run, also came out in 2016. A huge to-do about the release of this game. Miyamoto was working on it. He went on Jimmy Fallon to premiere it.
He was at the Apple
Oh my
developers
God, that's
conference
right.
or whatever or what I can't remember exactly what it was, but he was at the Apple because it premiered on iPhone. It was an
That's right.
Apple exclusive. Like it was a very big deal.
Right. You and I went to an Apple store in Glendale to try it ahead of release.
That's
remember?
right. Yeah.
And so instead of going with a mobile friendly pricing structure, they were like, this game is $9.99. And then there were some things in it you could do for free, but to unlock the whole game was $9.99. And this for me was the slam dunk that I hoped a Nintendo mobile game could be. I played the ever loving crap out of Super Mario Run.
Super Mario Run is great. It still exists.
Yeah.
So if you have not tried out Super Mario Run,
check it out.
Kind of like the gimmick of it is that Mario is always running, and so it's a one button like input. You're either holding it or releasing it,
right?
And that's how Mario
he jumps. It's how he jumps.
Jump.
And if he's in the air, then you can push it to like make him do a little spin to like get a little extra airtime. And you can use it to like get more height on like a jump when he jumps on a spring or a turtle or whatever. Or to like to wall kick.
It's almost like if you were playing like new Super Mario Brothers Wii, but the only input was like the shaking your Wiimote.
Yeah, it's like someone was always holding right and the B button, right? And you could every now and then push the A button. Like that's basically what the game was.
And it had like a little like competitive mode where you were playing as like a toad. Is that right?
Well, you were trying to get toads. So you were racing against the ghosts of other people that like had their behaviors. So like it learned what types of things people would try to do to get through maps, and then would make those ghosts based on that. And so you would race them, and you like had to do tricks to like get toads on your side, and depending on what levels you were in, you would earn different toads, and then you could like spend those toads on like stuff for your little village. Because it came out like September maybe, or some like leading into the holidays, so maybe it was even later, like October, November. But I remember that being Sarah and I were like obsessed with Super Mario Run. And like brought the battery, like the portable phone battery on our when we traveled back to the Midwest for Christmas, just so we could play Super Mario Run more. I absolutely love this game. It saddens me to no end that like it's gonna be stuck on phones. Like they're never gonna do another Super Mario Run because it wasn't monetarily successful. Like
it made a big splash when it premiered,
right?
But the kind of like worldwide consensus overall was people were furious that they had to spend $10 for it.
Which it's so good. Like, look, I consider that to be one of the new Super Mario Brothers games, like because it has the same art style and like a lot of the same like concepts. And for me, it's my favorite one of those games. I would put it up against the new Super Mario Brothers U. I'd put it up against the original new Super Mario Brothers. I think it's the best one of them.
I also think that the response to Super Mario Run made Nintendo go, huh.
Uh-oh. Yeah. Yes. Well, because they again with these first two entries, they tried the me thing and they tried Mario. They tried Mario and it didn't work.
Yeah, and like the fact that people were like, I don't want to spend $10 on this. I think it just made Nintendo really uncomfortable and kind of like uncertain with how to actually be successful on mobile.
So the next couple moves that they make on mobile, I think we can talk about both of these together because I think they're related. In 2017, they put out both Fire Emblem Heroes and Animal Crossing Pocket Camp. Both, I think, really good fits for mobile conceptually.
Totally. I feel like you probably played more Fire Emblem Heroes than I did.
I did. So like, it took this sort of Fire Emblem concept and sort of miniaturized it, both in terms of like the design of the characters. Everyone was like more chibi than you would normally see in Animal Crossing, or what am I talking about? Fire Emblem. But also the maps themselves were like smaller areas. They were usually like a 25 space grid, 5x5, or maybe just a tiny bit bigger. And it did the thing that we're going to see in the new Fire Emblem Engage of like taking characters from like throughout the Fire Emblem series, and that's where like the sort of gotcha mechanic was applied here. Of like, oh, do you want to try and hunt down Marth and play as Marth? You can. You just got to like throw money at it until you actually get the character. And it did all the things that you recognize from Fire Emblem, the weapon tree triangle, with the axes beating the spears beating the swords, and the swords beating the axes. And like all of this stuff that like made sense if you were already a fan of Fire Emblem, but was accessible even if you weren't really. So did you play much or any of Fire Emblem Heroes?
I played a tiny bit, but this was before I cared about Fire Emblem.
Yeah, great point. Yeah, before Three Houses.
Yeah.
And this is the moneymaker as far as
it's that gotcha mechanic.
It's that gotcha mechanic. Like it is the way to make money, and then also like due to its nature, it's like an infinite number of levels, basically, right? That they can just keep like populating a map with different terrain and different enemies, and you can go at it with higher and higher level characters kind of forever. One of the limiting factors on Super Mario Run was that like it had 8 worlds with 4 levels each, and that was kind of it for the new content.
And then Animal Crossing Pocket Camp, this one did feel like a good fit for mobile games because it has a lot of the mechanics that you come to expect from a mobile game, where there's like cool off periods for crafting, but if you want to pay, then you can speed that process up, and there's a lot of different items and things that you need to gather, resources that you can use to craft things. And then again, if you just want to buy more wood or buy more wool or whatever it is to craft that item, well, if you pay real money, you can speed it up. And so like I played a fair amount of Pocket Camp when it came out, like initially getting new characters to show up and interacting with them and like crafting things. Like it wasn't an unsatisfying experience, but just because I don't like those mobile mechanics, I fell off of it pretty quickly.
Right. Well, especially like when you start to see that like, oh, I can do this again in like 3.5 hours. Like I'm going to forget about this entirely. Yeah, it's so weird too. Cause again, we're in 2017, where a good 3 years before New Horizons. And like, I just wonder what the difference would have been if Pocket Camp came out in like this year. If Pocket Camp hadn't come out at that time and instead came out 2 years after New Horizons, people like hungry for that fix. I just wonder, like, I don't know, like, was the culture in the right place for Pocket Camp?
We should not understate, like, New Leaf was very successful. Like, New Horizons obviously on a completely another level, but New Leaf was successful. People liked Animal Crossing,
but it wasn't mainstream though.
But Pocket Camp still exists, so if people wanted to go to Pocket Camp, or if Nintendo wanted to promote Pocket Camp, they could. But it's very clear to me, like, I feel like huge signal, if you needed another one, that Nintendo is not actively pursuing mobile games in the same way they were before, is the fact that there is zero connectivity between Pocket Camp and New Horizons.
Yeah, insanity.
Like, or like that it wasn't like, in Nintendo Directs, it was never like, oh, do you like Animal Crossing? Do you know that Pocket Camp exists? Like, never any of that.
Never at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is, especially when like there's so much of like what's limiting about New Horizons is or like the true rare currency in New Horizons is what villagers are living on your island, right? Like there are like 900 of these things, and like you can go to a vacation island or whatever it's called. I forget, it doesn't matter. And like hope that one of the villagers that you want to live at your island is there, and if not, you got to like try it again later. But you encountered so many more of them in Pocket Camp. Like, why isn't there a way to like invite them from Pocket Camp to live on your island?
Yeah, because Nintendo just doesn't care about mobile games.
It's nuts though. Like, can you imagine it? Like the audience. Well, and who knows? This is probably where my understanding of mobile games falls apart. That like even a like rich, engaged mobile audience uh, could be, or one that ends up not being like financially successful, could be bigger than the audience for New Horizons, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, there are just so many smartphones in the
there's
world.
so many
Well,
smartphones.
and when Nintendo was introducing their mobile strategy, and even now when they talk about expanding the way that their characters and properties and
Yeah.
games like touch people in their lives outside of just the home console, you would think that that philosophy could apply to Animal Crossing Pocket Camp, where it's like if you liked Animal Crossing Pocket Camp, you will like this game, you will like New Horizons, and vice versa. But
There's just nothing
they just
moving
don't show
people
any
from
interest
one
in
place
that.
to the other.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do. Do you think that there is any like part of the gaming audience that were primed by Pocket Camp that then moved on to New Horizons, or does that seem like two unrelated points of data?
I don't think Pocket Camp was big enough, was ever big enough
Yeah.
to like really move the needle on Animal Crossing New Horizons, but it couldn't have hurt.
I mean, there is there like how to explain New Horizons is there are so many factors, right? But the success of New Horizons is it's so big. It's the second best-selling game on the Switch, right? Right after the absolute behemoth that is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. And it's like, why? Right? And you're right, New Leaf was very big on 3DS and like it had a reputation for being very good. But like a very a popular 3DS game that's not a winning formula to being like a great Switch game, right? So I wonder. I wonder if Pocket Camp like had some hand in like normalizing it or popularizing it or something.
It was that like Pokemon Go to Sun and
The
Moon
polls?
bump. Yeah. Now there's a Pokemon mobile app we could all use.
There we go. All right. Then in 2018, Dragalia Lost comes out. I think we've said all that we can possibly say about Dragalia Lost. But interesting to note that in 2018, Dragalia Lost is the only mobile game that comes out the whole year. So this sort of marks a little bit the end of like Dragalia Lost was certainly something that had been like in the works up through the development of and the release of the Switch. But I think at this point, Nintendo's kind of like, oh, maybe we can let off the gas a little bit here.
Yeah, I feel like Mario Kart Tour in 2019 was to this point kind of like the capstone of Nintendo's efforts.
Yeah.
On mobile.
Well, so let's move into 2019 because there are two releases. Both of them have Mario in the title. We've got Dr. Mario World and Mario Kart Tour. Now, of course, Mark, you and I ranked the doctors in Dr. Mario World. I don't remember anything about that ranking.
I think
Dr. Baby Luigi, no, Dr. Baby Wario is pretty high on the list.
Dr. Baby Wario is surprisingly high on the list. But the problem with Dr. Mario World is that it was bad. It was unfun.
Yes, and it was profoundly not Dr. Mario.
Yes, that was the most
that's
crazy
its most
thing
egregious sin
about Dr. Mario World is you're like, oh, cool, like a Dr. Mario, Tetris-like puzzle game.
Right.
No,
it's some like weird match 3 thing.
You like slide a pill from the bottom of the screen towards the viruses.
I'll never understand why they made things fall up in this game.
It was just ill-conceived.
Yeah.
I mean, yes. Dr. Goomba Tower.
Dr. Goomba Tower is an all-timer.
It's an all-timer, and
yep.
I pray that Dr. Goomba Tower shows up in a game or like the Mario movie or something in the future.
Look, it's 3 Goombas stacked on top of each other in a lab coat and like a stethoscope. Like it is a perfect design.
It's good. It's great.
Yes.
The game PU.
Yeah, the game PU for sure, and shut down now. Doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. I think was was the first of these mobile games to get shut down after only being alive for like 2 years because it shut down. I think earlier this year, maybe the end of 2021.
Yeah, I think it was in 2021, but I actually can't remember.
But like a total footnote in this. Again, it's another thing that people will be making a list of Dr. Mario games. They'll be like, there was a mobile game. We are 5 years away from that podcast being recorded. And then Mario Kart Tour, pretty strong and successful entry in Nintendo's mobile games array.
Yeah, I mean, heck, tracks from Mario Kart Tour are showing up in the Booster Course Pass for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I played Mario Kart Tour quite a bit when it came out, and I loved it. I thought it was great. You know, it's another one that's plays a little bit differently. You can play it with just like your thumb, essentially, like you're holding your phone in portrait mode, and it takes a little getting used to playing that way. But I think Mario Kart Tour is great. I think it recently went away from kind of like the gacha mechanics to a more of like a season pass mechanic, which I think makes a lot of sense for a game like Mario Kart Tour.
I mean, and I think that a lot of this just has to do with the fact that Mario Kart is just a winning formula. Like, there's just nothing not to like about it. It's we are now just a couple days out from that second Super Mario Brothers movie trailer, and we shouldn't have been surprised, I don't think, to see some like major kart representation in the movie. But the fact that it's like placed front and center in the trailer, like at the end of the trailer as the capstone hype moment to it, where it's like, oh yeah, Mario Kart rules, and everyone like unilaterally accepts this. Of course, it's going to be a successful mobile game.
I will. It'll be really interesting to me to see if the next like mainline Mario Kart game is 9 or is it 10? Like, does Tour fit into like an official place in the franchise? I guess we'll see.
This is when what they do is they just call the next one Mario Kart.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Modern Warfare.
Oh my God. Mario Kart Ragnarok. Okay, and then we take a couple years off. Maybe there's a global pandemic, who knows.
Also, Nintendo again stops caring about mobile games.
Stops caring about mobile games almost entirely. But then here comes Pikmin Bloom. What's going on with Pikmin Bloom?
It's a AR kind of like pedometer type game, encouraging you to get out and walk, counts your steps. The more steps you get, like the more Pikmin, the more like berries to feed your Pikmin, like all that kind of stuff. It's a collaboration with Niantic, the company also behind Pokemon Go. So Miyamoto like just this year showed up in a Nintendo Direct to be like, hey, have you heard about Pikmin Bloom?
Well,
I have a
like
shirt.
Showing off his progress in Pikmin Bloom too.
Yeah.
Yeah, just wholly bizarre, and like kind of as just a lead up to, oh yeah, Pikmin 4 is still real and is still coming out at some point. But Pikmin Bloom is one that I've occasionally feel the urge to like go back and like try to actually experience. Like I loaded it up on my phone, I went for like a walk with it, and then was like, I don't want to drain my phone battery for this. Sort of, like a sped up version of my reaction to Pokemon Go, where it's like, oh, this is neat. I don't need to do it anymore. But yeah, I don't, it occupies a weird space. Like, I don't know if it's successful for them at all.
I have no idea either. But what possibly could the expectations have been for Pikmin Bloom?
For a Pikmin game, yeah, absolutely. Like the most recent Pikmin game on the Switch sold like just over 1 million copies, which is a lot of games. But like for a first-party Nintendo title, like it's not blowing the doors off. Okay, so those are the Nintendo published mobile games. Let's quickly run down the Pokemon mobile games because I don't think we have too much to say about these.
No, I mean I think we should.
We don't even need to run them down.
Well, yeah, let's do
it.
We'll just acknowledge each one. We'll like Marie Kondo them.
Right.
We'll thank them for their service.
Kiss them on the forehead and release them into the wild. Yes.
Exactly. Okay, so Pokemon TCG Online, the trading card game online from 2011.
Which again, just like to highlight, 2011 beating Nintendo to the punch by 5 years.
Yep.
Next up is Pokemon Shuffle Mobile, which I'm not even sure I know what that is, in 2015.
Pokemon Duel in 2016.
Then Pokemon Go in 2016. And this is what Nintendo was watching when they were like, we have to do this too. Because Pokemon Go has made more money than anything.
And not just made more money, but I think it genuinely lifted the entire Pokemon franchise. Like interest in Pokemon exploded. After Pokemon Go, when Sun and Moon was released, it had an incredible debut for the series.
Right.
which was attributed at the time to like the success of Pokemon Go. It was
And
a phenomenon.
And like continues to be successful and influential to this day. Obviously, the Let's Go games like borrowed a lot of the Go mechanics, but like I think you can attribute some of Scarlet and Violet's success, over 10 million copies sold worldwide over its opening weekend, to the success of Pokemon Go.
Then Pokemon Magikarp Jump in 2017.
And then Pokemon Quest in 2018, which was also available on Switch, like free to play, both places.
Pokemon Rumble Rush 2019.
Then Pokemon Masters and Pokemon Masters EX in 2019.
Pokemon Smile 2020,
which is the brushing your teeth with Pokemon game. Then Pokemon Cafe Mix also in 2020. This is another one that is also available on Switch.
Pokemon Unite in 2021,
which should not be downplayed, because it is the Pokemon MOBA, which has a huge scene behind it. There is like an esports movement around Pokemon Unite in 2021. And then the last thing we have on our list here is Pokemon Sleep, which still isn't out, but presumably gamifies sleep in some way that makes me like wholly uncomfortable and makes me feel like we live in like an Asimov novel or something.
Maybe like as you sleep, you know, like your Snorlax sleeps as well, and so it's like if you're sleeping a healthy amount, the Snorlax is happy.
The Snorlax needs way more sleep than I do, though. How much hours during a day? How many do you think the Snorlax
to
is
be
sleeping?
A Snorlax? What a life! That sounds great.
Like 23 hours 47 minutes, right? So that's it. That is the past of Nintendo's mobile games. Obviously, you and I aren't the biggest mobile gamers, so that doesn't feature too heavily in our gaming diets. Although, like clearly, we've played a fair number of these games, and in some cases played like a lot of them. But let's try to deduce what we actually expect Nintendo to do with mobile in the next couple years, which we're going to do like a fantasy version of this where we're like pitching games in a second, and that'll be fun. But this part I think is hard. We're in an era right now where we don't have like an announcement or even like rumors of a Nintendo mobile game, right?
Right. Well, do you remember back in 2017 that, so we were in the early days of these Nintendo mobile games. The Wall Street Journal reported that Nintendo was developing a Legend of Zelda smartphone game.
Yes.
That, obviously has never been released. And it just makes me wonder what other, like mobile games did Nintendo have in development. And when the Switch was a huge success, they were like, we don't need to put our attention on this anymore. Like, we don't really like it. It's always
Makes
been an uncomfortable bit. And so we don't have to. Let's just drop this. And so I feel like Pokemon Bloom is really instructive.
Pikmin Bloom.
Oh, sorry. Pikmin Bloom is really instructive in like, that feels like a Nintendo effort to me where they're like, okay, it's got a pedometer, it has Pikmin. It's a way to like introduce the incorporate the characters.
It is appropriately weird too.
Yeah. But where I personally expected to go, so the company DNA was an early partner with Nintendo on a lot of these mobile titles, and
like business partner too. Like not just that they were working on these things together. That DNA bought part of Nintendo, and Nintendo bought part of DNA. Like they were like integrated at the money level.
And then but we haven't heard anything, directly from that collaboration for a while, other than just a few weeks ago, Nintendo announced that they, with DNA, they were creating this new like subsidiary that I'm forgetting what the name is called right off the top of my head, but they specifically said that it will be used to continue to develop like Nintendo accounts and that connection between
the digitization of Nintendo's business.
Yes. And so that, I think, is the future of Nintendo on mobile, is kind of like, how does the Nintendo Switch Online app change to be more of the Nintendo experience? I think it'll be more about the connections between
users,
between like the home console and the mobile phone, rather than trying to be like discrete mobile experiences.
I think that's totally right, but I think there will also be like some aspect of where you will be interacting with other people who are like in your Nintendo ecosystem directly through the phone and not necessarily like I think there's going to be an element of it where you don't even need to have the Switch, but you're not going to be playing games.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think they're going to it's so like they had Miiverse, they had a social network, right? And I don't think they're gonna really try to do that again, but I think they are going to tap into something around these networks that people have like sincerely cultivated on their Switches and with their Nintendo accounts.
Yeah, I could totally see that. I looked it up. It's called the joint venture is called Nintendo Systems.
Yes.
And I think you're right because, Nintendo with their expansion into like Lego and theme parks and movies and all that kind of stuff and their collaborations with Uniqlo, like they are trying to be a company that people have touchstones with outside of just the their home consoles. That's like the base of it. That's where kind of like the foundation, but then there's these other pieces of it, and I think you're exactly right that kind of like they want that connection on mobile, and they've discovered that they don't want to do that necessarily through like games.
Right. Yes. Which is that's the surprising part of it, though, right? And it's that evolution of saying like, well, we can't just take Nintendo games and put them on mobile in the same way that you can't just take a Nintendo game and make it a theme park. You have to do a theme park attraction that uses the same ideas, but you're not just putting the game as a theme park. You're not just making a movie that is Super Mario Brothers. You are making a movie that borrows a lot of those aesthetics. And so I think that is probably you're probably right that that's what we will see from Nintendo mobile games. I don't even know if there'll be another mobile game in the future so much as just like new features for the Nintendo Switch Online app, or if they like put it all under a single like unified app that isn't that is tied to the Switch specifically. I could see that happening as well.
Yeah, it's just like a Nintendo app.
Totally. Give me a Nintendo app.
That being said,
Mark, let's go crazy now.
let's just we both have a few pitches for Nintendo mobile games touching franchises that haven't previously had a mobile title.
So before we even start like pitching things, can I throw out a like a one that if I don't mention it, people will be like, why didn't Patrick say this?
Is it Donkey Konga for a phone?
No, it's that's not Donkey Konga for a phone.
Okay, I'll save that one then.
No, it's Pocket Card Jockey. Duh. Pocket Card Jockey, the game where you control racing horses by playing in discrete hands of solitaire.
Yeah.
A totally touchscreen experience on the 3DS. Why isn't it on mobile?
A complete no-brainer.
A complete no-brainer. So much so that I'm not even mentioning it. Goes without saying. Mark, I would love to hear your first pitch.
Okay, my first pitch is for a Ring Fit Adventure companion app.
This rules.
Syncs, so like if you have a fitness tracker or like a smartwatch or something, it syncs your fitness activity from your smartwatch to the game, and it will reward you in game for exercise that or like movement that you're doing outside of it. And it can also like send you reminders to work out. So if you want that, you can say like, oh, remind me every day, to log into Ring Fit Adventure and do like a 20-minute workout.
It could also then, like when you do Ring Fit Adventure, and then you go back to the thing on your phone, it could congratulate you.
Oh yeah, and also
That'd be great.
I guess it could sync both ways, right? Or,
yeah,
I mean,
it would have
sure,
to.
Why not?
That's what syncing
is. That like if you're trying to close your rings on an Apple Watch and you play like Ring Fit Adventure, that it would. I guess it'd be tracking all that stuff on your Apple Watch anyways, but you get it.
Yes. Yeah, no, I think that's perfect and like is so in line with how people use smart devices anyway. It's interesting that like the Apple Watch is like a big part of that. That we're mostly talking about when we talk about mobile, we're mostly saying phones, but like yeah, there are all these other like pieces of that too. That's a great pitch. I love it. Mark, here's the game that I was trying to play that had like limited functionality in the modern day. I was playing Mario vs. Donkey Kong Minis Tipping Stars on my 3DS, which was the Minis game that had a lot of like level creator features and then a pretty robust like sharing network where you could build your own levels and then share them with other people. And the titular tipping stars were how you got like the currency to buy more things within the game was that people would tip on your levels that they played and say like, oh, I tipped that 3 stars. It would cost them 3 stars. You would get 3 stars. Or exactly how the conversion worked. But none of that functionality works at all anymore. So it's just like the campaign that's still there. I had great memories of just like playing that game and just having an infinite number of like fun puzzle levels to play. But that's all gone now. But let's talk about Mario versus Donkey Kong and the whole minis series. There were a bunch of these games on DS and 3DS and even a couple on the Wii U. But since the like touchscreen interface has basically gone away, they've not done another one of these games on Switch. Which makes sense. Like doing touch exclusive games on Switch is a mistake. It doesn't work. People don't want to interact with their Switch that way. But people do want to interact with their phone that way. So a like minis, like touch base Lemmings-esque Mario versus Donkey Kong game is exactly what I would want to see on mobile.
That's great. That's a really good one. That feels like another Pocket Card Jockey kind of like duh to me.
Yeah, it's
like that makes
a total
lot
duh.
of sense.
Yeah. I've got 2 more that I think are just absolute duh obvious.
Is
ones.
one of them Donkey Konga?
No. Donkey Konga not on my list here, Mark. I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you. Look, I don't want to play Donkey Konga not on a pair of bongo drums. The thing that's so great about Donkey Konga is that you're actually doing the thing, right? Like Guitar Hero, you're not playing a guitar. Parappa the Rapper, you're not rapping. I guess you could, but that's not what you're doing with your fingers. You're actually hitting these drums the way it suggests that you hit these drums. If they sold a peripheral that was a Bluetooth connected pair of bongos, then I would be all for it. Otherwise, no sale.
That's a good idea. Well, what are your other 2 does?
Okay, so the other 2 does, and I'm sorry if this ends up like treading on what you're saying or what you were going to pitch. Brain Age?
Oh, yeah.
Where's Brain Age? Brain Age should be on phones right now. It's exactly the way people use phones already. Like you mentioned Duolingo, just the number of like
Luminosity or whatever.
Yes, exactly. Just give me that polygonal head telling me to like, touch the blue numbers in the order, whatever. That's what I want to do, Brain Age. And then the last one that I think is an absolute duh is Nintendogs.
Oh yeah.
And all of these are DS and 3DS series, right? The minis, Brain Age, and Nintendogs. Give me a cute little dog to take care of in my phone.
But the other one that I would put on there, and we've actually mentioned before on the show, is WarioWare.
Yeah. I think, absolutely.
Yeah, would work in like a vertical, or could work anyways. In that way,
could work anyway. Like that's the beauty of WarioWare is like it makes you do weird things with the thing you're holding in your hand to control the game. Like, yeah, why haven't they done these very obvious translations to phone?
Well, here's another pitch: is Metroid Garden. Kind of like Chow Garden from the Sonic series. So You would play as an ancient Chozo raising Metroids. Maybe you have to like send them out occasionally to complete missions against the X-Parasite.
Sure.
It's like a little like resource gathering thing going on.
Sure. So there's
like cute Metroids. There's like ugly ones. You can dress them up with hats and bow ties and opera glasses.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I've long been I do sort of think that Samus should be a part of this because Samus is a noted champion of animal life in the Metroid Kingdom.
That is very true.
And if we can include those like weird little green monkeys and the green ostrich thing from Super Metroid, like
that's right. Maybe it should just be like the whole menagerie.
Yes,
it's like Dr. Dolittle, but it's Dr. Samus.
Yeah, no,
she could talk to the animals.
She is one of the animals. She is a Metroid.
Yeah,
Samus, you have become a Metroid. No, that's a great picture. What do you think the like? Is it mostly like menu based, or are you?
So I think of it as almost like a Nintendo, or I don't know. I think of it as like a Tamagotchi.
Yeah.
Type,
okay. All right.
Thing where you see it, they're cute, but you're not like usually directly interacting with it. It is mostly. Gotta go feed it.
Right.
Go clean up like Metroid poop, that sort of thing.
Do you think Metroid's poop? That was going to be my question.
They must, right? They have to expel some sort of waste.
I mean, maybe they do. Maybe I feel like a Metroid. Maybe they're like special powers that they like use all of the energy
The
that
most
they.
dangerous enemy of all, one that doesn't poop.
All right, Mark. Here's my next pitch.
Okay,
You remember Kid Icarus Uprising?
I do.
Because we were just talking about it, I think, on Monday. But there are the flight sections of that game, which are a perfect little like touch screen roller coaster ride. Let's just get those flying sections.
Oh,
of Kid
that's a
Icarus
great
Uprising.
idea.
I don't want to do any of the on foot stuff, but just flying around. The music rips, which is not how I engage with mobile games at all. They're almost always silenced for me. But yeah, it would just be a fun like little time waster to see some like spectacular fireworks show flying around his pit.
So my next pitch is one that I think is for a very specific group of people, and it is
The two people at this table.
well, that would be all of these, but you know how, like in movies, either like an eccentric genius or a rich person or a rich eccentric genius, they are
Again describing people at this table.
they're playing a chess game,
Uh-huh.
but they're doing it through like the mail, so like one
Yes.
move at a time.
Yeah.
And then you would write down your move, I would send it to you, and then you have like a board at your house, like that sort of thing.
Yeah,
You understand
yeah.
what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So I'm envisioning something similar to that, but with Advance Wars, where it's asynchronous. So you and I would start like a battle,
Yeah.
and then I would have the opportunity to make all of my turns, and then you would have the opportunity to make all of your turns. And then once you've done that, I'd get a notification. I could go in and see what you did.
Right.
But I could do it on my own time. It's almost like Words with Friends. Like, we don't have to do it.
I was just about to pitch a title, Wars with Friends.
Wars with Friends. Yes. Like, you don't have to do it at the same time. It's not like you both have to be online. It's
Yeah.
just like, I'm going to make all of my moves.
Yeah.
And then when Patrick has time, he can make all of his moves.
Right.
And
then I'll get a little notification.
and then I'll get back to it, when I have the opportunity. It's
Yeah.
a way for people to like play like Advance Wars or Wars with Friends together, but not have to be like online at the same time.
Yeah, Advance Wars with Friends, I think is
That's it. That's the
excellent.
ticket.
That is perfect. Was that your final pitch? I have one more.
I have 2 more,
Okay, well,
but they're both short.
I did burn through 3 sort of
Right.
in one go. Why don't you give me one more and then I'll go and then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another I feel like a fairly popular form of online game is just kind of like those I Spy type, like titles where they're really like beautiful and elaborate illustrations, and you're just trying to find like hidden objects within
Yeah.
them, or like a Where's Waldo type of thing.
Oh, I can't wait to see what IP you're gonna map onto this.
Star Tropics. Find Mike in different time periods.
Oh my gosh! So he's still time traveling.
Is he still time traveling?
The events of Star Tropics 2: Zoda's Revenge.
Yes.
Sorry, Zoda's Revenge. Star Tropics 2. Continue on to this very day.
Yes. Yeah.
That's great. I'm mad right now that it doesn't exist.
And then I'll just give you my final game.
Yeah, sure.
Because I think it's a perfect pitch. But I don't have much to it. And it's Donkey Konga.
Mark, you gotta sell me the Bluetooth connected bongos, or it's not a sale for me.
I think it's a great idea. With the Bluetooth connected bongos.
But in your mind, was it just like that there are like 2 dots on the screen that represent the drums, and you just like play it with your fingers?
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's just a rhythm game. I just want that like
So why not like a Rhythm Heaven?
because I'll tell you why not a rhythm heaven.
Okay, all right.
Because I wanted that like big band version of The Legend of Zelda, or like Twinkle Twinkle Little Star.
Right.
And you can't get that in Rhythm Heaven. That
No,
music's
it's
actually
true.
good.
I was just talking about this, but there's a track in the original Donkey Konga called Diddy's Ditties, which is all it's like a medley of public domain songs. It starts with Happy Birthday. It's a miserable experience.
I also like the idea that like you'd be playing this Donkey Konga, and then it would force you to clap, so you'd have to like drop your phone or something in order to hit the phone.
Yeah.
In order for it to register.
That was a trick when playing the original Donkey Konga, is that like if you didn't have enough time to like clap, you just like slap the side of it and it would register the sound.
Yeah.
No, you're right. It's a good pitch. But also, why not Rhythm Heaven as well? We could do both. Here's my final pitch. Mark, I've been playing a lot of Marvel Snap. it's a fun format for games. I abstractly like collectible card games on mobile. I especially like Marvel Snap because it is so small and quick, and doesn't feel like a big confusing deal in the same way that like Hearthstone or Magic or Pokemon are. And I've said before, I would love to see a Marvel Snap that's like Star Wars Snap. That'd be great. How about this though? Nintendo taking their own swing at Marvel Snap, but it's in the Breath of the Wild, Age of Calamity, Tears of the Kingdom universe. Like, give me the whole Breath of the Wild timeline and just pull in heroes and villains from and locations from all of it, and then just be Marvel Snap.
That is such a good idea. I'm just imagining, because some of a lot of the fun of those games and like any sort of collectible cards is the art.
Yes.
And I feel like there is so much you could do with Breath of the Wild. I was just the other day thinking about, and I was thinking about Cass, the big blue bird.
Yeah, he's a good bird.
He's playing like the accordion from like Breath of the Wild. Perfect for like a one of these types of games.
He would, give like +2 to everyone that's at the same location or whatever. Like, it would be perfect. And because like just like in Marvel Snap, like you're not like restricted to be like you play as a bad guy or a good guy or like these characters that don't exist in the same time period. Like, who cares? Like, forget about it. You can have both Rivali and one of the characters that didn't exist 100 years ago. Couldn't think of an example. Just fighting together. Like,
yeah, totally. No reason you couldn't have Calamity Ganon or like a Bokoblin. Like all of those in a single deck.
Yes,
yeah, totally.
Exactly. Like literally 1-for-1, just steal Marvel Snap and make it Legend of Zelda. And then that would be a fun way to like pull in characters from other Zelda games and just like do them up in the Breath of the Wild style and be like, by the way, they're also in this version of the world. All right, Mark, we've done it. We've now pitched a bunch of mobile games. Seriously, why isn't Brain Age is the mind boggler to me. Why doesn't that exist? All right. We would love to hear your suggestions. If you have any, you can always email us at Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com. All right, Mark, let's close this out. All right, that is going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. Remember, you can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Patrick_Ehlers. Mark is at MKE Mitchell, and the show is at Nin Cart Society. You should also join our Discord. You can email us or tweet at us to get an invitation to the Discord. It's a great time. People are having conversations about Nintendo in there all the time. Anthony DeLuca made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8BitBetty. You can get more of his music by going to 8BitBetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Ehlers saying thank you for listening.